thank you for joining me. Today we're going to go over the very basics of automations. The first thing you need before you start an automation is the list of people you're going to be sending this automation to. So the easiest way to make one of these lists is just going here to segments on the right hand side of the contact list and then adding a filter. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and create a filter called status. I'm going to set it to lead. Now it's going to give me a list of all the people in my system that are set up with the status set to lead. So let me go ahead and save this. Leads. So this is the name of my segment, which is basically my list that I will be sending this automation to. We recommend you start with a very small list and then test it out, and then of course then launch your automation. Now let's go ahead and go to automations. Click on new automation. And here where it says include from segment, I'm going to go ahead and click on leads. So it's going to go ahead and include anybody in my lead list here. Now I'm going to go ahead and put a new lead auto reply, meaning the moment I get a lead, I'm going to reply with this automation. Now here it's asking me if I want to include contacts added to this segment after this automation begins. So basically here what I'm saying is ignore the existing contacts, only include the ones after I enable this automation that get added as leads. This is a good way if you're in this case, where you may not want to send this auto reply to your old leads, you only want it to the new leads. You can do that. And then exit with segment. This means if they're no longer meeting this criteria of being a lead, should they leave the segment? Should they just get removed from this automation? So in this case, if I were to change the status from lead to customer and I had this on, then they would automatically get removed from my automation. If not, they would continue until the automation was paused or they finished the automation. So just important things to be aware of these two options. Now, in the workflow, we have 3 different types of objects. Okay. So first we have filters. What the filter does, it's basically a traffic stop sign, right? It's a traffic direction. Right, so imagine the lead, this contact. Imagine this is the contacts that you're inputting into this automation. These filters allow it to check the current conditions before moving forward. Right now, each of these filters you will see has a green or a red, so it's a yes or a no. So now this basically the first one I'm putting here. It says has owner. Check if the contact has a selected owner or has an owner by default. Now, so basically here what I'm saying, can you check if it has any owner? If it does, then I want it to go ahead and move forward and send a text message. So we're going to use an action in this case. So the blue ones are actions, things that you can trigger, and things will happen, right? So let's go ahead. If it goes to the green, let's go ahead and send a text message. We're going to go ahead and send our new lead text message. Now, if I leave it like this, what's going to happen is that if there's no owner, the contact's just going to get stuck here, right? Until there is an owner. So please keep that in mind. If there's no red path here, until there's an owner, till it meets the criteria, it won't move forward. So if you were to add a lead and it currently doesn't have any owner, then it's going to get stuck here. Now, if you were to create a separate path, then it can move forward. So let's go ahead and say, if it doesn't have an owner, then let's go ahead and assign it an owner, right? And let's go ahead and do this randomly to my people that are in round robin. So now at this point, if there's no owner, it will assign it to somebody, and then we'll send a text message. So we can actually combine 2 paths into the same action here. Okay. Now let's go ahead and continue. So let's look at some of these other filters. Now, let's say we want to check what day of the week it is, right? So let's say only on days Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Oops. So only on weekdays, I want the contact after this action is triggered, I want the contact to move forward. Now, keep in mind, let's say the contact doesn't have a phone number. This action will not get triggered. Okay, so you need to make sure the contact will get stuck there. You need to make sure the contacts you are putting into these automations have the proper tools to continue moving forward. So if it were to move forward, now here it's going to check if what day of the week it is. Let's say it's weekend. So in this case, I can actually send the second text message for the weekend by putting in a path this way. If it's weekday, then I can go ahead and send a contact down this path, right? Now we can also check what time range it is. So let's say it's 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So let's go ahead and remove this. So only when it's Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., I want this text message to go out, okay? So let's say the follow-up. Now, please keep this in mind. So just because it's Sunday doesn't mean that the contact gets stuck here. What it's going to do, if there's no path, as I mentioned, if there's no red path, what's going to happen, it's going to wait until it can meet these parameters. Just like here, it's going to wait till there's a user to move forward if there's nothing in this route. As I explained, here it's going to wait till it's Monday. Once it's Monday and it fits those criteria, then it's going to move forward and wait till it's 9 a.m. and then it's going to move forward. So unless you have a red path, the contact's still going to be here. It's still going to be active. And once it does meet that criteria, it's going to go ahead and move forward and trigger this action. Now, in this case, it's my follow-up. So in between your first one and your follow-up, you may want to add an action, in this case, to wait. So we have what's called our wait action. So this is our wait for. So let's go ahead and wait 1 day, right? One day, and then move forward and check if it's Monday through Friday to send the follow-up, right? So what's happening is a new lead's coming in, is checking if it's owned by someone. If it's not, then it's going ahead and assigning it somebody, and then sending the text message, waiting here 1 day, and then checking if it's after that, checking if it's Monday through Friday during business hours, and then sending the text message. As I mentioned, you can create text messages as a trigger during the weekend or after hours by using the red paths. Okay, so those are actions. And just to give you an idea of some of the other actions you can do is you can add a deal, right? So this is pretty useful if you're triggering for different criterias. Let's say they were interested in a product and you want to go ahead and automatically trigger a new deal with the amount, the deal name. You can also generate a task. So that one's really useful. After that, let's say they didn't answer or they haven't replied. You may want to add a task to call them back, right? Call lead, right? So by default, is going to get assigned to the owner of the lead, right? Task description, follow up, due date. Right. So 1 day from the step execution. For the moment this triggered, 1 day later, it's going to be due around, let's go ahead and put 4 p.m. So, okay. And then you can notify the person that's getting the task to make sure they're aware that, hey, this task was created for you. Now, after a while, if you want to have some of your teammates actually collaborate and share the lead with them, you can also share it. So, a pretty good use case for the sharing is, let's say you turn the lead into a customer. You may want to share it with your service department or with the person that's going to be taking over the lead, right? So you can share it, or you can also assign it an owner. The moment you assign it to somebody else, the past owner, if they don't have the right permissions, they may not be able to see it anymore. This is also pretty great, if you've done a couple of follow-ups and the lead hasn't replied and you want to pass it on to another salesperson, give it a shot, you can also do that, right? You can also set rules for distribution of rules of the leads themselves. Of course, you can send an email. This was pretty straightforward. You select your template, you send the email. Finally, you can also pause the automation or you can add the lead to a list or remove it from a list or a static segment. So if you have a specific list of, let's say, your hot leads or something like that, and for some reason, you haven't heard from the lead in a certain time and you want it to be removed automatically. If you're not using filters, you can also do an automation to remove it. Or for your BIPs, so let's say you maybe favorited a lead, and you clicked on the little star favorite icon, and you want those to automatically get started add it to a specific list, you can do that by using add static segment. There's a lot of different actions, and there's a lot of creativity, a lot of things you can do, a lot of different workflows, not just for new leads, but for existing customers, or from the moment you're moving from deal stage to deal stage, that you can trigger a lot of these things. And finally, we have the send webhook. Okay, so with send webhook, you can use third-party software like Zapier to trigger any type of action that you want, right? So you can send webhook. A pretty common use case is direct mail, using third-party services, send out a postcard, or you do some type of ringless voicemail. So those are some of those things. And then, as I mentioned, once you reach the bottom, you may want to pause the automation, right? At any given point, you can pause an automation. So those are your actions that you can do. Now, we also have events, right? So an event can be something like what happens if a call comes in while you have this automation going in, right? Or let's say an email comes in, or we have a text message come in. So these you can actually link at any given point of your automation. Please keep in mind that, unless let's say you link the incoming text message here, it won't start listening for incoming text messages until it reaches this area, right? But it will be listening moving forward. So if a lead goes down this path, right, it's also going down these other paths here. So typically we use events a lot in the beginning of the automation to be able to be listening for incoming feedback, right? So what do you do with this incoming feedback? We listen to it, and then if we do get an inbound email, an inbound text message, and an inbound email, a phone call, then we go ahead and either pause the automation or also update the status, right? A lot of people like to update the status to this lead is maybe qualified or it's communicating. So you can go ahead and create your own statuses and set that up here. So qualified lead. So I'm going to qualify it basically, and then pause my automation, right? So the moment, doesn't matter if the lead is down here. If you add these events up here, the moment somebody replies, this is also going to trigger, right? Let's say they texted back, they emailed back. Any of these could trigger. Lead gets assigned to qualified, and now it gets paused for the sales rep to take over. So you can have an entire qualification automation going on, basically doing that. So now you also have some options here, right? You can actually be listening. You can trigger events like, if a text message, has the word stop, right? Perhaps if they replied, no, I'm not interested, or a specific word, you can also trigger other actions like removing them from a list, pausing it as well. But if they replied something else like yes, then you may want to update the status to qualified, right? And then pass it on and maybe trigger something else. So you can also be listening for deal stage changes. So let's say a lead or a contact got moved from one stage to another, from pre-qualified maybe to pre-approved. You want to send them from appointment to one, right? You might want to send them an email that's a welcome email, and then update the status to now a customer, right? Because you closed the deal, so now he's a customer, he's no longer a lead. You can trigger all those type of workflows by having a deal state change. So if it goes to, let's say, close, then I'm gonna want to update the status to customer, right? Because he's no longer a lead, and then pause it as well, or trigger, as I mentioned, a welcome email. Add a task, for onboarding, those type of things, right? You also have a appointment created, very useful if one of your deal stages is creating an appointment. So the moment you create an appointment, you could actually create a deal at that given point using an action, right? So the deal could be just have a set value, and update the status maybe to qualified lead at that moment, right? So you can go from lead to qualified lead the moment you trigger an appointment creation. Now, in terms of filters, as I mentioned, we have has owner, in date range, checking if it's maybe if you're doing a specific campaign that may not be relevant after a specific given time. You can put this on the top to make sure nothing gets triggered after a specific day or a specific year. So it's just a good way to stop something. In time range, as I showed you, in time range and only on days, very, very powerful to make your messages very natural sounding, very transactional aspect, right? Because if somebody's contacting you at 2 a.m, you don't want to be texting people on Sundays or in off hours and stuff like that. So it makes it a little bit more natural, giving the system the time, right? A lot of times what we do is we receive a form submission at 2 a.m on a Saturday. You can trigger a text message saying, hey, I just got it. I'm out of the office. It's pretty late, but how about we talk Monday, right? And we trigger a text message. Sounds natural 5 minutes after they submitted the form, and they're like, wow, great customer service, right? Obviously, the sales rep's asleep, and then Monday, they just carry on the conversation, right? So you can do some pretty cool, neat stuff with it, and definitely check out our workflow examples on our website for more ideas on that. Finally, you have that in-segment filter. So any segment that you create on the system, so let's go back to our segments here. Any segment, let's say anybody that has texted you back, anybody that's called you, anybody that has a specific address, that it's like a specific contact type, job title, etc. You can check and filter against that, right? So I can go ahead and, I can check, if the zip code is, for example, if the city contact address, let's say, and this is one we just actually, one of our customers just did, contains Houston, right? So let's say it's a lead from Houston. Obviously in this case, I don't have anybody from Houston, but let's say somebody contains Houston. You save that as contacts from Houston. So the moment you trigger your automation, you can say, okay, well, give me anybody that is actually contacts from Houston. If it is a contact from Houston, then assign it to one of our team members, right? If it is a contact from Houston, then give it to in this case, John, right? So you can create some very custom stuff with that. So as I mentioned, it's kind of a blank canvas in terms of what you can do with it, with this set of tools. And the last one that I forgot to mention is Throttle. So Throttle is a way to just kind of limit your outbound efforts or just contacting efforts. So you can say, okay, well, I only want to be sending 50 maybe follow-up emails or text messages every day. So we have customers that will have a list of 10,000 customers, and they want to be checking up on these customers all times, right? So they might set up an automation to text them, hey, how's everything going with your service, right? But they only want to reach out again around 30 a day, so they don't overwhelm themselves by texting too many people, and then they can't reply to them. So that's one way to just keep things a little bit, hey, let me just do 20 a day. Or if you have multiple campaigns, maybe you want to be doing 30 emails in one campaign, but only 50 in the other, or text messages and stuff like that. So it's an easy way to just kind of pace your campaigns. What the systems does is the moment you reach your 20 every day, for example, every hour or every 30 days, it's going to wait till the next day and then do another 50, and then it'll wait. So they're all still going to be in queue. It's just going to throttle it so it goes a little bit slower, right? As they're all moving down your automation. So there you have it. I mean, that's basically covers all the filters, all the events, and all the actions we currently have available. We're always expanding, we're always adding, we're always taking your feedback. So please let us know if you have any questions. As I mentioned, check out our website. We do have some example templates on our resource tab down in the bottom. So if you click on workflows, you'll find some workflows, some ideas of what you can do. But as I mentioned, you can customize these as however you like in any shape or form. All right. Thank you very much.